welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker, joined by my brand new shirted co-host. Admire the shirt, Abram Buhner.
Thank you for having me.
We are here to talk about a very new game. In fact, releasing the day that we released this video, and a game that we're very excited to talk about. That is, of course, as you can see by the thumbnail and the title, TOEM. Little indie game, very different from what's releasing around it. I'm very excited to get into it, but if you want to talk to us about this game or other games, you can join our Discord. You can follow us on Twitter. You can subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the other shenanigans we're getting up to. But Abram, both of us finished TOEM. And
we did.
Holy God, I'm excited to talk about this game.
I am too, but Tucker, before even we talk about it, we should note that we were provided with a review copy of TOEM. I was provided the review copy by Pop Agenda to do my review over at RetroWare, but we have so much to say about the game that we're doing a review here at BLB too. So the code wasn't specifically for BLB, but that's how we played it. So full disclosure out there in the open before we begin. But Tucker, I like this game a lot. I think this game is really excellent. I think it's one of the best games of the year.
I wholeheartedly agree. Now, I don't necessarily think from my personal perspective, there's a ton competing with it. I haven't played a lot of games I really loved this year, but this game is just so much up my alley. I had an absolutely phenomenal time with it, getting the platinum trophy for this game. For number fourth person on the planet to have the platinum trophy for TOEM, which is one of my new gaming achievements, but this game certainly deserves that kind of attention in terms of going for the platinum, because it's so well paced in its challenges. It's so diverse and creative, and most importantly, doesn't overstay its welcome. This game is an absolutely perfect length for you to want to go out of your way and collect everything. I think I spent 4.5 hours getting every single thing in the game, and that's just the perfect length.
Yeah. So for people who might not be familiar, TOEM was introduced to us through the recent Indie World Showcase, and it's basically this little black and white kind of Paper Mario inspired photography adventure. Some elements of like a Pokemon Snap in there, but I think Paper Mario is the core influence would be relevant to our audience. And it's just a really charming little experience to complete in under 2 hours that I really did love. I want to talk about that length a little bit because I do think that it's too short. I kind of have trouble saying, a game is too short, because I'm a fan of shorter games. I'm a fan of tight artistic statements. But I feel like in the context of this, we probably could have stretched its mechanics just a little bit further. But on the whole, I would agree with you in the sense that this game is pretty close to flawless, like one of the core I want to talk about. But for me, the reason TOEM is so amazing, beyond how digestible it is just how wonderful this world is to be in. There's this one point towards the end of the game where you find these two balloons. They're a mom balloon and a dad balloon, and their child balloon is having the birthday, right? But the wind blows the child balloon away. You have to go find this balloon, right? It's very simple. It's a very simple quest line, but it's earnest. It's so well written that I cared about these three balloons. And that's kind of testament to how all of the writing, all of the characters are in 2 hours you'll spend with TOEM. They're so endearing. They're so inviting. And for me, that's why this game is so special.
It's about those small, really memorable, really well-crafted moments. The overall story is really nothing. I mean, it's basically the same as a short hike. As you're trying to reach the top of the mountain and see the colorful aura that goes around the island, which is fine. That doesn't mean anything. But what really makes it strong is that you meet all sorts of wacky little characters with super unique designs and memorable little beeble bops of voice. That's what we're gonna call it from now on. Animal Crossing, Banjo, Star Fox, they're beeble bops. All right.
Beeble bops. All right.
The beeble bops. But you can rattle them off and say, I loved finding the bouncer in the forest with the rave of a bunch of little bears dancing to a DJ Moose. I loved tracking down the scary monster in the forest that this military compound is tracking, and they talk to you through periscopes. And then when you meet them, there's this really gruff military guy leading the operation. There's so many of those small little stories that are really animated, really unique, and it just makes every moment, you're always finding something new and charming. And that's really what I loved about its pacing.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Earthbound a little bit in that sense, where just weird shit happens that everybody in the world takes seriously, but you have this weird disjunction about. It doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense that these Periscope men are after this big trench coat pedophile type of guy who ends up being two squirrels stacked on top of each other. But everybody takes it all so seriously, and that makes it really fun and really charming. It doesn't feel like irreverent in terms of like, oh, haha, how wacky. It's like, yeah, I live in a world where there's all of this ridiculous stuff going on, and that just it's wholesome.
Yeah.
And that's not usually a way I use a word I usually use to describe games, but this definitely is. And it really is timeless, I think. I think the gameplay is a little bit less memorable, as I want to talk about, but there's also a great sense of variety as you move forward, because you're moving from this little town to this huge mountain, and in the meantime you end up in this city or these other natural locations, and because of that the game always stays fresh in these little scenarios it provides you with, which is another reason why I think it works so well.
And especially within those areas, there's a lot of there's visual variety between I think there's 4 worlds that you go to, but inside of them are little diorama-like areas that you can rotate around and have all sorts of stuff packed into them. And you're always looking for the little details. And I think that's what really made me love this game so much, is I was always thinking, okay, is this a little interesting thing that I can deal with, or this is going to be important for later because it's a little bit strange, so I might as well take a picture of it now so I can use that for a later thing. And you're always moving on to something new and something fresh. And especially in the pacing and format of the game, is no challenge is actually required. If you get stuck on something, don't do it. Find something else. Only like a third of the challenges are actually required to get to the end of the game. And I think that makes it really accessible. And even if something is a little bit esoteric in terms of what you need to do in the environment to complete a challenge, which I found a couple of, there's plenty of variety. You can always try something else, and none of there's no pressure in this game. And that's so refreshing to finally have something that is calm, laid back. You're just helping people. You're just having a good time. You do what you feel most comfortable with, and just get it done. And it's light and airy, and all that's refreshing.
It's a game of intentionally low stakes, which I like. The mode of progression is basically you have to take a bus between these locations, and you have to complete a certain number of favors for the people in these locations to get stamps, which then you can exchange for a free bus ride. And because of that kind of sets your expectations right there. It's like, okay, so I got to take this picture of a shy hippo who's sunbathing on the beach, right? That's about as strenuous as these activities are going to become. And I do find that really nice, because sometimes I think when you think of a relaxing game, think of something like an Animal Crossing or a short hike, which is not nearly as wild as TOEM is. TOEM could have been a really absurd game, right? And it could have been a lot more stressful than it ends up being. And I think that's partially due to pretty simple mechanics. And I kind of want to talk about gameplay a little bit. And I think that the simplicity works in a lot of instances, but in one core way it doesn't. And for me, that's with the camera, because
that is the gameplay.
Well, what's interesting actually is that the game is built as a photography adventure. That's only half true, because I would say maybe 50% of the challenges are strictly camera based. A lot of them are about meeting characters, solving little like environmental puzzles, things like that. And then you'll take a picture here and there. And of course there's compendiums to fill out, but really the photography is not very complex. And so because of that, I didn't really ever find myself wanting to take pictures just to take them. It was usually, I want to take this picture because it'll do X or do Y. It's not really a game where you're going to take like beautiful photo mode photos, which was a little bit disappointing to me, because the camera is about as simple as zoom, take the photo. You can also honk a horn, which is really fun and has some great applications. But did you take issue with the camera?
I don't actually think that necessarily is a problem that I found, because the world is so consistently designed that if you can frame something or find something interesting, you can take those beautiful photos. And I think there will be, once this game comes out, a rash of people putting online like, oh, look at this fun little picture that I took with placing my tripod, which I think is a great mechanic, far away and capturing a little animation that a character is doing with myself making this face next to it. I think there is the opportunity for that. It's intentionally simplistic, and I think I actually appreciate that, because one of the worst aspects of New Pokemon Snap was the strenuousness of its photography grading system. is this
Sure.
is you have something in frame and you take a picture of it, and that makes sense. Photography is subjective. The fact that Professor whatever the hell in New Pokemon Snap can either dock you a ton of points for something stupid or give you too many points if as long
Yeah.
as something has a toe showing in frame. It's inconsistent, but this removes that stress, and I think that works best for photography, which is supposed to be a very relaxing experience. And they do give you opportunities to set down a tripod and try that to take a picture of yourself or something else in the environment, or angle yourself up and down, zoom in and out, all of that. It's just complex enough to where I found myself enjoying it and taking a handful, not a lot, but
Yeah.
of those um, extra pictures.
Sure.
And what was I say? The fact that the world is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very consistently designed. The art is amazing. There's flat models for everything, but it all has this really fun little charming style to it. And even if you just take a picture of a bug sitting on the ground with a couple blades of grass, that in itself has a simplistic beauty. And I think
True.
that's where the game really shines.
Yeah, I think you're making a really good case for that, because it kind of returns to this central idea from a gameplay perspective that TOEM really is about the vibe of the game,
Yes.
opposed to any individual activity that you're actually completing.
Yeah.
Because there's this one little quest line in the city area where there's a fashion designer trying to put on a runway show,
Yeah.
and they have no inspiration. The inspiration they need is for you to show up wearing a hot dog hat,
Yeah.
and the hot dog hat makes them have this huge, artistic revelation. And all that takes is talking to the hot dog vendor to get the hat for a different quest, and then putting it on for this person. It's a
Yeah.
couple button presses, right? But it's about, oh, here's this high fashion thing that's happening. Let's put on a hot dog hat and make it fun and weird. And
Yes.
and that's why you're playing TOEM, not because it's hard to make the fashion designer want to wear a hot dog hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there's something nice about that, especially for me personally, when so many of my favorite games this year are The Ascent and Cyber Shadow and No More Heroes 3, which are either these huge, like really stylish and in your face overt games, or really tense mechanical experiences. TOEM kind of does a great job showing, I think, the versatility in the medium.
Yeah.
It's not, even in ways something like A Short Hike, which we both really love, maybe doesn't, because this is so far outside of the box in a lot of respects, which I really appreciate about it.
Yeah, and it's got other little charming elements we haven't touched on yet. There is character customization in terms of
Yes.
you're dressing yourself up with shoes and hats, and there's extra accessories and scarf and glasses and stuff. And some of them actually have gameplay ramifications, which is nice.
Yeah.
I like when it's not just fashion. There's different applications, and they also affect different quest lines differently. But it always feels like you're unlocking something a little bit fun to
Yeah.
mess around with. And I loved dressing up my character in different scenarios, or putting on the mountain boots to climb the thing, or the ghost glasses that allow you to see new characters, and all of that is just simplistic, charming fun. And on top of that, it has a great soundtrack that
Yeah.
is that you can play any song you've encountered at any time through your Hike Lady, which is a play on Walkman, which is really fun. And they show the actual artist's name who composed the track at the bottom of the screen when you get it. Everything is really compact and digestible, which makes you wanting to go complete all those challenges really rewarding. The compendium that you're looking at, or your journal or whatever, shows each quest very easily, which ones you've completed, which ones are ongoing, which ones you haven't completed yet. There's little out of whatever number things for you to fill up. It always feels like you're making progression.
Yeah.
And I played the entire thing in one sitting. I got the platinum basically without moving my butt from the couch, because I was just so invested in making sure I could do everything, because the worlds are so intricate, and the
Right.
environments are so much fun, and the music's amazing, and the animation is really quality. I think this is one of the games that'll be underlooked this year, because it is so much smaller, and a lot of people are turned away by 2-hour runtime. But I think that's perfect for what it is. I would have loved another area. It wouldn't have been that long if there was another area, but I'm not complaining that there isn't, because they knew this, they wanted this game to be as chill and as compact and as tightly designed as possible.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right, and I don't think that's something to be overstated, just how much is in so little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason why it's fun. No singular inch of any of these maps is wasted for one reason or another. Whether that's because, oh, they hit a character here that you need to take a photograph of for this or whatever, or a little compendium entry you can write, or even just a nice little environmental detail or a little nod or joke. There's a really great comedic bent to this game that you'll experience, that's best experienced firsthand. But it takes a very careful designer to use space this well. So I think from that lens too, even just beyond the experience, like really thinking about it as a piece of design is really successful.
Anything else you want to say?
I don't know. I think my thoughts are about commensurate to the game's length. I don't have a lot of them because there's not a whole lot here, but that's not necessarily a problem. While I mean, I do think that it should have been a little bit longer. Because I think that we start to play with the idea of these areas interconnecting in some ways, like some of the quest lines do transcend any particular area, but I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more of that, even just a little bit more of an understanding of what TOEM is could have helped also. But it's hard to complain when you can sit down and play this in one sitting and feel really fulfilled and happy and like you want to return to this, because this is the world I do want to return to. Probably once I've taken some time, I'll go back. I haven't 100%ed it yet, because all of a sudden now there's a fucking new game every 3 days that I want to play. But TOEM is worth finding the time for.
Most certainly, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's on everything.
No, it's
not
on
Xbox.
It's specifically on PS5, not PS4.
Yeah,
it's on Switch.
Yes,
and I think it's on PC.
Okay, so everything but Xbox
and PS4. No PS4.
Nope. Okay. Well, regardless, it's accessible. It's cheap. It's not very long, and it's very unique. That's what really comes down to is the environments are funny, the characters are lovable, the art style is entirely its own, and it knows exactly what it is, and I think it's beautiful in its confidence. And it's gonna end up as one of my favorite games of the year. And for me, it's not something I find myself wanting to go back to because I did complete everything, and also I'm not someone who really goes back to games, especially ones that are about completion like this. I mean, I know where all the pictures are, I know where all the challenges are, so there's no challenge in that at this point, but that's not a problem. I got my fulfillment out of it, and I'm so happy that I got a chance to play, that I got a chance to platinum it, and two full thumbs up.
2 full thumbs up. My last thing I want to say is that we mentioned a lot of other games in this review. We mentioned new Pokemon Snap, we mentioned Short Hike, Paper Mario, all these things. This is a game that does draw inspiration from a lot of places, but the end result is so wholly unique. I've really not played a game like TOEM. I've played games that TOEM evokes, but nothing that fills this niche. And so I think that's really special. That's where I'd leave it.
And with that, we are done with our TOEM review. I'm very happy we got a chance to talk about this game, and I hope our discussion has turned a couple people onto it. It's coming out very soon. As of you watching this, you
can buy it right now.
Available, and go do that and talk to us about it when on our Discord or in the comments, whatever, when you do. So we will see you guys in other videos. Go play TOEM. Now, do it. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. This is a threat. You will play TOEM.